I am here right now with Rick Sessinghaus from Flow Code. Welcome to the Calm Waves podcast. I'm Dallas. I am so excited for this episode with you, Rick. We have been just talking over the last couple weeks. I remember just the story of my parents visiting you about 2 years ago in Las Vegas as you were the keynote speaker there. I can't remember what the event was.
Sure. Yeah.
But you were the keynote speaker there, and you were so kind to my parents, being able to talk to them about what we're doing, trying to make the brain bigger, faster, stronger. So you being here on the podcast today is so exciting for me. I just absolutely love it.
Thank you, Dallas. No, it was great to meet your parents, because I was for the college coaches convention. College golf coaching convention in Vegas, and I was one of the keynote speakers, and I talked a lot about mental performance. And I came off the stage, and your dad kind of like, hey, can I have a little bit of your time? Because I was talking a little bit about using some neurofeedback and as a way to kind of measure the mental game a little bit more. And he said, hey, I got something to show you. And then we actually had a common we used a common neurofeedback tool. And so that kind of got us sparking. And then I was loving what he was doing, because your dad's fantastic, where I don't know a lot about how the brain works, the physical, the organ itself. I'm looking at, as we've talked about off camera, is we've talked about the soft skills or software. I think I'm pretty good at coaching the software, but the hardware I really don't know much about. And he's an expert. And so we hit it off, and it was great to meet him there.
I love it. I love it. And I love you being here today. For those who don't know, Rick, you are a PGA level mental performance coach, and you teach coaches too, which is awesome. I love that a part of you, that you not only can teach PGA Tour golfer, but also teach coaches on how to do this, how to improve it, because it's such an important skill set, no matter whether you're on the course or off the course. We talk about, building a brain that's bigger, faster, stronger for performance, but also just for like daily life. How do you be a better dad or husband through these types of things? So I want to get into your story a little bit of how did you get into this? Like, how did you, you've been doing this for a very long time. And over the last maybe 5 years, it's starting to become a little bit more like popular, you might say. So how did you go into this type of profession?
Sure. Yeah, I think sometimes we tend to go into things that we need most as an individual. And I grew up in a very sports-minded family, with my father being a football coach and stuff here just outside Los Angeles is where I was born and raised. And, I played sports all year round. So it was your baseball season, your basketball season, your football season. Plus I would throw in some tennis. And then I didn't start playing golf till I was almost 13 years old. So there was always something happening that was active. And I love that I grew up in that environment. As I kept going higher and higher with each one of them, you had to start making decisions on specializing and stuff like that. And I was a little bit more into the football. I never was going to be big enough, but I really enjoyed that sport. Played 1 year of high school football before I got hurt. And then that's when my love affair with golf really started to take off. So what I found was interesting is that the same mental game skills do apply to all sports, but there's a lot of differences, right? So playing football as a quarterback, the reaction time, the decision-making had to be very, very fast. And it was a very physical sport, obviously. Then I transitioned into golf, very slow moving, a lot of downtime. Nobody's running to tackle me. And yet focus is a skill, but it was a little bit different. And so I think I was always intrigued with performance overall. And back then, it's obviously you train harder, you work on your skill sets, you work out in the gym, which all makes sense. But back then I didn't have any understanding of what mental game was. This is a long time ago. And I think when I played college golf at Cal State Northridge, it really started to be glaring to me, where I would play golf with some really good players, and your ego comes out. my golf swing's better than their golf swing. Why are they beating me by 5 shots, right? And so I had a disconnect in my head where these players were beating me routinely, but they honestly did not have better physical skills than me. They didn't. I hit the ball further than them. I actually hit it better than them. Yes, there's some nuances with short game, but the mental side became the glaring gap now as you got higher and higher, where talent doesn't differentiate you as much. And so I had emotional regulation issues. I was a very frustrated golfer out there, a lot of anger. That anger now spills into being distracted on the next shot. It may lead to a little doubt. I mean, so I had this kind of spiral happening, and I didn't know how to fix it other than, well, I just got to practice more. And if you practice more, then I'll hit the ball better. If I hit the ball better, then I'm not going to get mad. But unfortunately, as you get higher and higher levels, your expectations keep getting higher. And if you don't meet that, that's my definition of frustration. So I was constantly frustrated playing golf. I was a very mid-level D1 player and then played a little professional. But so to get into the business of mental game coaching came from my own need of going, why is that person playing better than that? I'm a very curious person. And I think once I had that when I was a junior in college going, wait, there's something different here. And that's when I took my first sports psychology class. And I'm going, oh, okay, this is different. And it wasn't, and again, this was just an intro class. And back then, it was about the zone and playing in the zone. And, they really didn't know how or what led to that. But it was so intriguing to me that I just jumped in and I started reading books and stuff like that. I went to see a sports psychologist when I was playing competitive golf just to kind of see what that was. Now, that's over 30 years ago. So the point of that is that was at least my track getting into the business was definitely for selfish reasons to help myself. And so I think as I am a coach now, I come to it as a perspective of a player and an athlete. I know those internal struggles. I know the pressures. I know the, expectations and what you want so bad out of it. So I always try to keep that filter on first. And then when I love golf so much that I became a member of the PGA, teaching golf, more the traditional swing coach, putting coach, and built a business here in Southern California, and loved it. But I found now the same thing was happening with my elite juniors and some of my players. Is like their golf swings look better and better every week or every time I saw them, yet we weren't seeing a change in scores, or we were seeing change in scores in a practice round, but not in a tournament round. And so now I'm going, oh, okay, it wasn't just a me issue now. There's other, there's some disconnects here. And that's when I started to introduce more playing lessons and more time with them talking about how to play the game. I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but I think golf as a whole is poorly coached because it's on the range all the time and we're trying to perfect a golf swing. And rarely does a student ever get on the golf course with a coach and actually know how to play the game from the different lies and the different situations and how to make decisions. And that's the skill development that when I played football, it was all about situational awareness. You're the quarterback. You got it's a 2-minute drill. You got one timeout, minute 18 seconds. We got to try. I mean, it was all situational. It wasn't, hey, Rick, get your elbow back to an 82-degree angle and release it here. So with golf, I saw that there was a disconnect in the industry of everything was about technique. And I said, no, we got to. So I kind of became known as somebody who did a ton of playing lessons. And people go, wow, I got so much out of this. Now I know how to do this and this. And then that led even more of the mental game because I was starting to work with some really good junior golfers, some really good college players. I'm going, okay, they have some different questions for me about pressure and about nerves. And I didn't know really how to answer that other than my own perspective. So that's when I went back to school and got a master's and then a doctorate in applied sports psychology. Is I wanted to know what are the best of the best doing to perform under pressure. And it didn't matter if it was a golfer or a skier or whatever. We're just looking at these tools. And so I finished that about 19 years ago-ish. And that's when I started to kind of splinter where it became like 80% swing lessons, 20% mental. And then 5 years after that, it became 70-30. And now you fast forward to now and it's 90% mental, 10% physical. I still have some very good golfers that I work with on their swing. But my passion is about mental performance. And so now we come right now in the last 4 years, helped develop a company called Flow Code, where we create frameworks and strategies to help people go from a fear state to a flow state. So, and looking to grow outside of golf. And I just love helping people tap into their potential.
That's amazing. A question I have for you is, do you remember because anger is a big thing. I mean, like you can go doubt, you can go all the different ways. Do you remember the thing that you learned that you're like, oh, this actually helped me? Like,
100%.
What was the thing that you were like, oh, this is the thing that actually like triggered in my head and went, I need to apply this right now?
100%. Now, I'm not going to take credit for this, even though I had my own version of this that nobody ever told me about. It was called a post-shot routine. Okay. Everybody talks about pre-shot routine all the time, but back then I was reading a book. I've studied a lot of something called neuro-linguistic programming. So NLP is our how we communicate the world to ourselves is extremely important. And so one of the exercises, it had nothing to do with golf, was just reframing a situation. I go, okay. So long story short, I started thinking about what gets me angry. Well, for a lot of golfers, it's bad shot. Okay, so I'm going to let the little white ball now dictate my emotional reaction. Well, that's not very empowering. So do I have other options was my first question. Now, the answer is, of course you do, Rick. You don't have to slam your club and say you suck every single time. You have options. So that was my first thing, is to know that there were opportunities to go different directions. Now, it wasn't about just, and unfortunately, this is where some mental game coaches would say, just forget about it. Just be positive. I just hit the damn ball in somebody's backyard and you're asking me to be positive? Yeah. I got to reload and I'm going to make double and miss the cut? Come on.
Yeah.
So I did not like some of where that was going, because I don't think we forget about anything.
100%.
But
absolutely.
if I can diffuse the emotional response to it, correct, it doesn't stay with me as long. And I call that the refractory period. So back to I remembered me running a scenario. It's a visualization exercise that I do, where I run the pattern that got me angry and frustrated, and I run it different ways. What else could you do? Well, I could hit the poor shot, throw the club down the fairway. I could yell really loud. And it wasn't all about positive. It was showing me that I had some behavioral flexibility. Okay. Then I came to, what could I do? Could I smile and say, that's okay? No, that did not resonate with me. So that wasn't an option. But could I watch it in a neutral way and go, I wonder why it did that? And I go, yep, you're a curious person, Rick. You can be curious why it happened. And that's where's my light bulb, is that I could now have an option to go, and I don't want to use the word fix it, because I don't believe in that, but I believe in being aware of, like, that ball went 50 yards left of my target. Wouldn't it be nice to ask why? But I never asked why. I just said, you suck, Rick. Okay. So now I go, was that a mental error or a physical error? Because most people in golf will just blame their swing. I get it. But maybe there was water on the right-hand side that I had a memory triggered that I went in yesterday, don't go right, and I steer it left, right? So that's where's my big aha, is that I had options. And it doesn't mean positive. It just meant I had different options. Rick, I can learn from the shot. Well, that's better than being critical. So that's something that to this day with Flow Code, we want people to be curious over critical, and not forget about it, because I don't think that does us anything for learning.
I think it's fantastic. It reminded me of, so this is kind of a deep cut for Dallas, is I worked at a group home for foster kids with my wife. And one of the things, I actually ended up going to therapy for it. So this was because I had to learn how to handle my own emotions. This is a totally different thing. One of the things was I would get have a disagreement with one of the girls, and you'd have to navigate that. But I would get angry, and I was like, this isn't right. And so talking to my therapist, I went, and he was like, no, anger is an okay emotion. It's just how do you handle it? Because what I was doing was I was expressing my anger and I was expressing my joy at the same time, because I was just trying to numb myself more than anything. So as you're talking about, like, okay, you have options. And I'm like, oh, I have options. I can actually this is an okay response, but it's like, what do I do with it? So it was like, oh, okay, I'm validating my emotions, but then what do I do with it? So I would probably be like, I would want to play golf kind of like neutral. Like, how do I just have no emotion at all, or, whatever it is, but, then you're not, competitive, and, all of those types of things. So I love what you said. And actually, that's one of the things I wrote down from a post-shot routine. I thought about it because I had yesterday a meeting that didn't go as well as I thought. And it was the post-round stuff. And I actually saw your video. And I was like, okay, how do I handle this? Like, did I not do a good job? Was I not curious enough? How do I go through it? So from a applied business side of things, or applied life side of things, how do you see a post-round mentality, whether it's a conversation with somebody, or what would you recommend to somebody?
Yeah. So I'll go golf, then I'll move it right to business here, is
Yeah.
that with golf, I have post-shot routine, post-round routine, post-tournament routine, right? So a shot is the individual shot. Okay, I want to process that, learn, be able to now shift to my next shot. Doesn't mean I fix anything. It's just I'm processing it. After the round, I want to look back, and I'm going to talk just mental right now, not physical skills. Mental, I have checklists and stuff like that, and this is very basic, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how is my focus? How is my confidence? Very basic stuff. And then I have some open-ended questions. How many of the shots were you committed to? Let's say it's 80%. Out of the 20%, were there common patterns? Oh yeah, anytime there was trouble on the right, I was not committed. Now we have we're looking at pattern recognition of going, oh, if I have that again, I'm probably not, I better have a strategy with my mental coach to deal with that situation. To me, that's gold. Now, post-tournament now is, yes, you look at all the rounds, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. And now I look back at, and one of my favorite questions is, if you get to go back in time and you can't say hit a better shot, would you have made any different decisions? Would you have prepared any differently? And now they go, oh, Rick, you know what? Now that I look back, I would have prepared differently in my practice round. I would have done more putting because the greens were faster. Great. Now, then we can compartmentalize and process and now move on. In business world, a lot of it's communication based, and my undergrad was in speech communication. So it's looking at what response are you eliciting from the people you're talking to. And I joke about I have 3 kids, but my son, like, hey, Grant, pick up your room. Nothing happens. This is when he's a little kid, right? Grant, pick up your room, and just yell, right? Nothing happens. Then I say, Grant, pick up your room now. And he goes, oh, I didn't know you want me to do it now. And so we have to be careful of what are we eliciting in our communication, and did we have a clear intention going into that meeting? Were we clear in what we're doing? And then we can go back, because I've done a lot of presentations, and I've learned from, like, wow, Rick, you talk way too fast. You try to jam way too much information in. You didn't. So now I'm looking back and go, Rick, you could have done this better. Awesome. Now I make an adjustment.
Cool.
But some of the stuff's out of your control, right? You're not in control of who's across the Zoom or whatever, and maybe they're having a bad day. But you can certainly be prepared. You can certainly have an intention. You can certainly now go back and go, oh, where did I miss the mark? Maybe I didn't get their needs, and I didn't understand their motivation enough, right? So that takes maybe a couple minutes, but I haven't seen many people in the business world being able to do that. They're just reacting to the next thing,
Correct.
And they're not really looking back of what happened there. And so I'm very much into post-performance routines.
That's great. I love that. That was actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm glad you brought that up. One of the questions that I want to ask is, so flow. It's flow code. It's in your name.
Right.
Flow is something that is a very common it's becoming more common. How to get flow state. You got deep work, you've got, all those different things. I want to hear your definition of it. Because I think it's one of those words that everyone just likes to throw out there. But I would love to know, like, okay, what do you think of when someone's in flow?
If we go with the overarching, you perform your best and you feel your best, right? Performing our best is one thing, but feeling your best as you do it is another element of this. And that's what has always intrigued me about flow state. I don't want to get sidetracked on another state called clutch state, which, Dallas, you and I will talk offline about this one.
Okay.
Clutch state is very similar to a flow state, but it requires a little bit more effort to get into it. Okay. I was clutch. I knew I needed a flow. There's certain things you could do to get into a flow state. but it tends to, when you're doing it, feel effortless, right? Clutch, not as much, but you're still at peak performance.
Correct.
So that's a different stage for us to do on another podcast.
Interesting.
For flow, what I always, of course, I'm taking a lot of this from the godfather of flow, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian psychologist, who really studied this and looked at all these different fields, whether it's athletics and surgeons and musicians and teachers, and he saw a lot of common threads. And what I took from it, for my own definition, is when you're fully absorbed in the moment. So flow follows focus, and that's a lost skill in our day and age. Okay, that's one thing. It's also that flow, what I've taken from it, is when we're actually getting challenged at a level that we can deal with, but it pushes us a little bit. Flow happens when we're being pushed, not when things are easy.
Yes.
So I've always liked that. And then the other part, which is not talked about as much, is they call it kind of an autotelic experience. It's kind of like the intrinsic motivation. I'm doing it because I actually enjoy the activity. When in our day and age, a lot of people they'll do the activity for an extrinsic reward. I'll do blank if people tell me I'm very good at it, or I get a trophy, or I get a college scholarship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But flow is just, you just love the challenge. You love doing what it is. And to me, that's what life's about. And a lot of research, like from the age of 0 to 8, flow is a natural state. We are creative, we're imaginative, we're focused, we're in that flow state. And yet it's taken out of us as we get older because of people of critical voice and more self-awareness of, I don't want to let people down. And then it chips away, and then we're more vulnerable to now be critical and in our head instead of being in that moment experiencing things. So I look at it as, we can look at peak performance, but I look at more of it just living in the now and wanting to do what we're doing.
I love it. I love it. My dad talks about, not flow, but, when he's, be where your feet are was what he talks about. Just get a hula hoop. That's your circle right now. That's all what it is. I love that side of how you explain even both of them, the clutch state and the flow state. That's fantastic. What would you say? I was thinking of this too. The quote, how I think about like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. People always talk about how great they were, but they loved practice.
Yes.
Like that was their biggest thing, is like you hear all these stories how Michael Jordan just loved to compete. That's why all these old school stories come out of how he would just get the best players and go, let's go play.
Yes.
That doesn't happen today, because what if he gets hurt? What if that happens? He's like, no, he just loved to compete.
Correct.
And Kobe Bryant was the exact same way. So when you talk about how like loving it and being in the moment and finding that passion, I think that is one of the greatest gifts, is to find somebody in their flow state and in their passion state too.
Yes, and so part of flow, there are different triggers for motivation, and one of them is intrinsic and autonomy, right? I'm doing it for my own reasons, and those internal reasons. And I don't know the story well enough to give details, but certainly Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympian of all time, retired and came back because he came back back to the love of being in the pool, being and missing the training, not necessarily missing the gold medal around his neck, but the community of it, the training of it, right? And I think as athletes, and this can be with business people too, as they do something year in and year out, sometimes we forget why we did it in the first place, and those motivational strategies do start to shift. And I'm not saying that's positive or negative, I'm saying they shift, and if we're not aware of them, then we're dreading going to work out, we're dreading to go practice, we're dreading to do the prep for our PowerPoint that we need to do, instead of saying, wow, I love this challenge, this is cool, this gets my juices flowing. So that's where this like motivation in the industry is like, oh, motivation, it's not, don't talk about motivation. It's like, no, motivation's real. It's how you define it and how we utilize it, that passion and purpose and autonomy have all been proven to help you focus and to help you be at your best.
Well, I think people don't like to talk about motivation because it's leaders going, how do I motivate my clients with what I think they should be motivated by? I'm motivated by this, so you guys should be motivated by it too. It's the worst thing in the world when you have a boss being like, hey guys, we're doing a pizza party on Friday. If you guys hit your number, and everyone's like, that's not our motivate. Like you've missed the mark so much without asking those questions, going internally. Let me ask you this. What's your motivation? What is your thing that gets you like, I'm going to keep doing this?
Every time that I have a client, a student that lights up with their own joy, and I was part of that. I mean, I'm so grateful and fortunate that I get to help people achieve their goals and go on their mission and go on their own motivation, and I could be a part of that to give them those skills and strategies to be able to yes, perform better, whether it's on or off the golf course, but enjoy life more and give them skills to deal with stress and stuff like that. So it's when I get that, it could be on the golf course where somebody hits a shot they never hit before. They go, oh man, that was awesome. Or wow, I really did see that picture. Like you said, there's oh, that's going to be helpful. That lights me up. I mean, I want to make a difference, and golf has been a great vehicle for that, but now it's to expand all of those things.
Yeah, I same way. I got a buddy of mine texted me. He has a Calm box, and he texted me this last week, and he's like, hey, I used it before my round, shot my best round ever. And it was like, I didn't do anything. It was just providing him the resources and go, hey, try this out, see what it looks, see how it feels in your world, and see what happens. And he owned it. He was creative with it. And he was able to go, oh yeah, I just shot my best round ever. And awesome. I was relaxed. I was cool. He goes, I lost a shot on 15, but besides that, I was able to regain. I'm like, that's awesome. And all I did was provide, the resources and being able to say, hey, this might help you in this environment.
Exactly.
So it's the same way. I light up when it's like people seeing their success because they've been creative with this, with the tools that we've been able to provide. That's great. So curiosity, I love that word. It's something I love too. So when you said that, and you said that in your video about how you're a curious person, where do you think that comes from? Like, where do you think as you as a person, and then as you talk about like kind of performance of other people and their work, where do you think that comes from?
So what pops in my head was two things. One would be when I was playing golf, the obvious of that ball went 60 yards left. I wonder why, because that's a very cause and effect in your moment, right? I think on a bigger scale, when I was first learning about mental game and about personal development, a lot of the reading and research I do is not necessarily sports. It's human development, personal development, right? And there's just a very easy equation as far as a performance gap. Where am I and where do I want to go? Okay. Well, that gap I want to fill. And I was always in golf very like, okay, how can I get somebody who's a 5 handicap to a scratch handicap in 12 months, 18 months? Well, that's a challenging goal. Can it be done? Yes. But what do I have to fill that gap with? And the obvious would be, I got to improve my putting. I go, oh, great. Or maybe I have to get faster with my club head speed. I'm going to work out more. But how about mental? How about making better decisions? So I was always looking at the puzzle pieces that were filling the gap. Okay. And that's what I was then. Now, if you just go mental, I became very curious of, what tool could help somebody get into the present moment better? Visualization, breathing, body awareness scan. And so I'm going down that again, this is still a selfish endeavor for me. I'm trying to improve my own life. Yeah. But I think it goes back to, again, and you and I have talked about this equation that Tim Gallup coined, potential minus interference equals result or performance, right? So we all have these different potentials, and I know that's hard to define for people, but I had a higher potential in college playing college golf than I do now because my physical abilities were so much better. My club head speed was way more than it is now. But if I had a lot of interference, I may shoot the same score now that I did then because I have less interference. So as a performance coach, I'm looking at what are the interferences. I believe, and this is my bias, that a lot of it is mental emotional that people don't realize. They're going to look at the physical because that's real to them. And yet if they were really honest of going, you know what, I was nervous, but in a fearful way, which now led to tension, which now led me steering the ball. Okay. If they can be honest with that, I think then we have somewhere to go. So my curiosity was first of filling the gap. And then within that, if there was a skill we now know, let's say it's focused, what would help train that, and what would, and that's what drives me every single day is figuring out other tools and stuff of what works and what doesn't.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking when you talk about physical and mental, we think about that as well. Is we do pitching or golf's a little bit different because you're not taxing your body as much. I mean, it's you're walking, you're doing. If somebody doesn't have, if you're on the 16th hole and you're winded, you go, okay, you need to work out more. You need to do the steps things. But you have like a pitcher, he's in the 6th inning, maybe the 4th inning or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, is this mental fatigue or is this physical fatigue? And because they go kind of hand in hand, do you know? Can you pick up differences, or are they so synonymous to each other? Are they so tied in together that it's because it's hard for us? I mean, because if you're physically tired, you're mentally going to try to, I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to try to, get up a little bit more. But if you're mentally tired, you just can't see it. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And it reminds me of a study that was done years ago on tennis players. And they were trying to differentiate, let's say, a top 20 tennis player from somebody obviously extremely talented physically. And one of their studies was, what did they do in between points? Okay. And so part of it was, and I wish I knew more of the specifics, but this is years ago when I read it, was the elite, the top 20 in the world, the point was over, they would look at their strings, straighten the strings, whether they needed to be straightened or not, take some breaths so they're not in their head. They were able to recover a lot quicker than the other one who's bouncing around, and maybe they won the point. Yeah, right, man. Ooh, yeah, and now they're wasting a lot of mental and emotional energy. And what they found is that you go 3 sets. Now in men's, if you went all the way to 5 sets, exponentially, that is going to really make a difference. So they were looking at heart rate, they were looking at recovery skills, micro recovery throughout that led to that. I'm fascinated with that stuff because in golf, you would think it's not very physical. You're right. But the mental warfare that people are beating themselves up with after every shot and not dealing with it, it's like they one word I hate, but the people use, I'm grinding out there. Wow, that sounds like fun. Okay, so I'm grinding. You grind something down to nothing, right? Yeah. And that's where the mental anxiety, and that's where the beating up of self-talk, and that's where when you don't have the emotional regulation, you bet it's going to affect your physical energy. So I don't have an equation of like what's, what, but I've just seen that, some of these recovery skills built within are super, super important for mental, emotional, and physical energy.
I 100% agree that we talk about too is when you are thinking so much, your glucose is being burned. So from a physical standpoint, you're not seeing it, but you're going, okay, when I'm on 18 or I'm mentally drained.
Yes.
Or so by the day 2, I can't perform as well because the day 1 I burned up all my glucose and I couldn't recover. So I think, we talk about body recovering so much, but what about the mental side of it? How do we actually savor your glucose or whatever that focus is, so you
Correct.
can beat out the other guy too? That's Correct. A competitive advantage to be able to do that. So that me as an amateur, on a golf course, sometimes around hole 14, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of done for today. But but that is a part of it. It's like, okay, how do I focus in on every shot? How do I get into that? What would you say? This is probably maybe a common question you get. What would you say separates the college from the amateur from the pro, from a mental side of things? Like let's go, because people always say, you have such a great swing. There's lots of those guys out there that can stick it. But what would you say from a mental standpoint? What would you say is the big differentiator?
Sure. So I'm going to just zoom back a little bit of how I define the mental game, because when you ask people what the mental game is, you're going to get a whole bunch of different answers.
Perfect. Yep.
Fair. So I look at it as state management, mental, emotional, physical state. What am I cognitively thinking and focusing about? What emotionally am I running? And then that emotion creates a feeling, and the feeling now could create a stress response in my physical body, right? So I'm looking at state management. What state are you in right now? Okay. Now, there's many, many, many things that could change that state. Environment is one of them. So I could be somebody we'll use golf as the example. I could go in my practice round and shoot 72, feel great about myself. Now it's the same golf course because the next day I'm going to play the same golf course. So that environment hasn't changed, but there's a psychological change that has happened. Oh, now it's tournament time. Oh my gosh, this matters. Oh, I don't want to embarrass myself. And now we have a completely different thought pattern that triggers a different emotional state, which now triggers grip pressure change, timing changes, swing sequence changes, right? So I believe the higher level player certainly has a lot of talent, of course. But what differentiates them is that it doesn't matter what environment they're in, their internal environment is focused and calm and confident, and they can manage the internal environment no matter what's going on outside of them. That's what I've seen the most. And in fact, certain environments that for most, when I ask people, is pressure good or bad, or is nervous good or bad, I get three answers. I get, oh yeah, my gosh, nervous is really bad. Or I get, it depends. And then I get, oh, it's great, right? Well, that's a perception thing right there. Pressure is just self-inflicted. Yeah. So nervousness can be defined as fearful, don't screw up, but nervous can be excitement, anticipation. So what we're trying to do is have people perceive things different. That's the cognitive side. And then that could trigger a different emotional side, which now triggers the body different. So I'm looking at state management. So the better the player, they've probably screwed up a lot, but they've learned from the screw up. They've made adjustments with their routines or their prep or, how they deal with things. And then they've tightened the dispersion of their behaviors. Now in golf, we talk dispersions of golf shots, but behaviors are not fluctuating too much. I see young players who you see them in a lesson and they have a smile on their face, they're calm, and then you see them after a tournament and they're just devastated. And it's like, what happened here? Well, the result was so important to them that they forgot they actually had to make some decisions out there, and they were just attached to it, right? So attachment is a big thing. Elite players want to win. Let's make that clear. Yet they know they're going to do everything in their power from preparation and practice and pre-shot routine, post-shot routine, and to give themselves the best opportunity to do that. Most people, they want it really bad and they try harder and oh my gosh, and they do different things that they never trained. So there's a lot of things on that, and that's been back to curiosity. I'm curious why that person who may not have the same as good of physical skills, why that person always beats this person who's known to be great talent. Well, there's some state management stuff.
That's great. Yeah, I think when you talk about like nervousness and excitement, Dr. Cowan, my dad, always talks about how the brain doesn't know the difference. Like it's out of the same output. So correct. You can say like, am I nervous about this or am I excited about this? And people can, but that means you care too.
Yes.
So, and that's a good thing. Like, hey, I want to be here. I want to be present. But if you go down that nervousness road too much, then you're like, oh no, if I don't do this, I'm not going to make the cut. I'm not going to, and the pressure gets higher and higher where, it's like college scholarship or I'm not going to make the high school team. Like, okay, that's a little bit different than, hey, I need to feed my family.
Exactly.
Well, like, so you have all these different things, or if I make this putt, it's going to change our life forever. Like there's so much of those stakes that are in there to try to manage those in the best way possible to be able to do it. Yeah. Thumbs up on that one. That's great. What would you say to an everyday golfer? Let's go just, guy on the links. What would you, if you were to, and everyone's different. Like, so you could, if you're doing a playing thing, but if you're like, hey, here's the one thing that if I could tell everybody to do, this would help their golf game and maybe their life at the same time. Like what would be it's just a foundation of what you want to make sure that if everybody in the world did this, it would improve their golf game and life better.
A lot of I'm going to answer it in many ways. So
yeah,
sorry,
okay.
I'm not one answer.
You're good. You're good.
So the first thing that popped in my head was gratitude. Now, people are like, gratitude? What the heck's that about? Well, it's funny when we play this game for a long time, sometimes we get very cynical. We become very jaded, right? And then I ask people, why are you playing? And they can't even give me a good reason anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And then if I go, well, why did you play this Saturday? Well, I'm playing with my normal foursome, and it's my buddies, and I don't get to see them very often. I go, oh, that's pretty cool, right? You got your social, right? We call that social flow. You utilize your environment with your buddies, and you guys could trash talk, you guys could connect, you're in a beautiful, and I start reminding them of what are those positive triggers of why they're even playing golf in the first place. So I think because when it becomes result-based, and golf's a challenging game, come on, right? I get it. But that can pull us away where we're actually not even looking forward to teeing it up. To me, that's the first thing. So attitude, right? And I'm going to talk about gratitude is like being able to be grateful. I get to tee it up today. Man, it's a beautiful golf course. I get with my buddies. Cool. Okay. Now, from a strategy standpoint, because I give so many playing lessons, would be to play within your skill set. Okay. We call it, your dispersion is understanding what your normal pattern is. There's nothing wrong with playing your normal pattern. And then from a decision-making standpoint, I honestly believe that the average golfer needs a lot of help making better decisions. Okay. They need to understand how the lie is going to affect the ball and the slope. And, most golfers are always short on their approach shots. I mean, there's things that I think that golf is a very mental game. And I know people say golf is not about thinking. You're not supposed to think. And I go, baloney. I said, you're supposed to think a lot, actually. You're supposed to be aware of an environment. You're supposed to process that environment. You're supposed to analyze. You're supposed to make a decision and go. Now, as we now take the club back, we would hope there's a lot less thinking. I get that. But let's not put it in this bucket of don't think. I want people to be aware of their strengths. I want them to be aware of their patterns of shots. And I want them to be present of like what most likely is going to occur with this situation. I don't think a lot of people, they just get up there and that's 150 yards. They go, well, you might have shot at 150, but it's straight uphill and you're into the wind. It's like, that's playing 165 and you wonder why you're short all the time, right?
Yeah.
So those are those things that people can improve upon. And yeah, I could go pre-shot routine, post-shot routine, but I think it's, let's check in why we're teeing it up that day. So that's an intentionality of that. I love that. And then you can have a goal. That's great. But then within the goal, it's like, today I'm going to play within my strengths. If I normally slice the ball 30 yards, I'm playing the slice. Great. And then I also understand that slice could go 60 yards. So thus I'm going to aim more left. Now I have a pattern of the miss that I can play for. And it minimizes like the big number. You're going to still make your bogeys. But we're trying to minimize the carnage of triple bogeys and stuff like that. So play within yourself, understand your misses, and get better at decision making of understanding the variables.
That's great. I think I think the gratitude thing is one of the best things, no matter what. I mean, everyday practice of going, I get to play golf today. Like I mean, if you think of the upper echelon of sports to play. It's a privilege to be able to do that and to go and spend time with people, whether it's, work event or if it's friends or whatever it is. We were actually, there's a cognitive test or assessment that we do. And I think it was verbal reasoning. I think it was a low, someone was low in that and doing research on actually how to help with it. And one of them was journaling, but also gratitude. Because you have to recall things in your brain to go, okay, I have to process, past events and doing things like that. So it's actually, it was an interesting thing of like, really journaling is actually a cognitive improvement from a brain standpoint. It's not just I'm going to feel better. I'm actually improving the hardware of my brain by doing this. I didn't know that. So when you talk about gratitude, it's actually a good thing to do from a hardware standpoint. I know we talk about software and hardware, right? Mental side, how do you improve the brain being as a muscle, bigger, faster, stronger? But that was surprising this week. We were doing some research into how do you do it, not just through like, Tricia Murphy back or, kind of devices, but like actual things. And one of them was journaling. And Wonderful. Then it was like, okay, gratitude practice would be the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Of actually helping your cognitive improvement by doing this.
Exactly.
So I love that. I love that. That's the big thing that you think about. What I know we've had conversations offline just about brain tech and things that can improve that. Where do you see this fitting in? Where do you see the things that we're doing at Calm Waves being able to help a golfer, your clients, even going into the future? Like what do you see that kind of because you already have, I went through your book. You're already very versed in the brain and what it does. I think you actually do understand it very, very well. But you may have experience that my dad's had in the clinical side of things, and just focusing on that. But where do you see that kind of progressing?
Yeah, so I'll answer it in what is happening in the golf industry first.
Okay.
Is that when I first started coaching golf 30 years ago, it was you gave a golf lesson, you as the coach saw the pattern and you saw the motion, and you saw a ball flight. That's all you had. Then 5 years into that, we then had our camcorders out. Finally, we're actually videoing and we're giving feedback. Hey, this is what your swing looks like. Now it was very grainy. You couldn't really slow it down, but is it like now the student goes, oh, they had more awareness of what it looks like. Okay. And then now you rocket ship to what we've had the last 5 years now is that you have these radar systems, TrackMan and Full Swing and flight scopes and all this kind of stuff that measures the ball. So we know now factually what's happening with the ball and the spin rates and blah, 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 and also what the club's doing and all this stuff. And then we have force plate technology to know how somebody's ground force is working. And then we have 3D vests. And it's like, holy smokes. So we now can measure everything we want about a golf swing now that we couldn't do 30 years ago. So if we can measure something, as people in my industry say, if you measure it, then you can change it. Fine. Now, I'm not saying everything you should measure, like the left pinky toe, that's going to affect everything else, but I get where they're going with it. Now, if we go and now we can have a protocol because now we know that their internal hip rotation is this and it needs to be here and maybe they need physical fitness and therapy. Great. We have now more of a cause and effect, correct? Now, the mental game to me is going to be going in that direction. It's just we're lagging behind. Is that as a mental performance coach, the soft skills, as you and I talk about, are the software, and I'm talking about changing thought patterns and emotional reactions, those type of things. A lot of people in my industry, think it's still a little woo-woo. Like, yeah, you guys, it's like, well, no. We know now what a flow state is. We know the brain waves that go with it. We know the neurochemicals, and I show them. They go, oh, okay, maybe I'll listen to you now, right? We almost have to prove things to people that this exists. Now we go, okay, great. Now I can actually measure something, but can I train with it, right? Can I get the feedback? And that's what I'm so excited with. So yeah, I've messed around with neurofeedback and heart rate variability and all these cool things. And you've introduced me to Mendy and Combox, and I love it because we're training it. Mm-hmm. It's not just, yeah, Rick, that, I listened to that podcast. I read your book. Yeah, that's my mental game. I go, you have information, but you didn't train any of it. So now when we have a training protocol that gives us feedback that we can now measure over time, to me, that's a huge breakthrough. Now, where is it going? Well, I mean, right now I have a wearable, right? I have an Aura ring. We have Whoop. We have all these things that are measuring all these things. Now, what we do with the data, we still, I think, need to work on, but at least we're trying to go in the right direction. And I think where it's going to go, especially with like VR and virtual realities, we can put people in certain environments, situational, that would create stress. And then in real time, we can help create strategies and interventions to be able to do that. That will feel very real to them. And that's only going to get more intense with AI and all this kind of stuff. So I'm excited that these tools are here and they're only going to get refined. And then that's why, partnering up with you guys is so important, because I need to know a better job of how the brain is actually functioning and working, and you're building it. It's not a muscle, it's an organ, but you're building on it and you're training that. Seems like it's the same as me training focus and visualization, but they're really different in a way. They could be together, which is awesome, but it's nice when I have some background to say, doing this visualization exercise is going to help you focus in the present moment. And it's also going to have neuroplasticity where you can change your brain. It's like a win-win. But I don't have that background to tell them about how brain regions are changing and all that stuff. So I think that's what I'm excited about working with you guys, is the merging of this is we're really kind of trying to achieve the same thing from slightly different spots, but they're always integrated, always.
Correct. 100%.
Coming from there. So I believe that there's going to be huge jumps in mental performance training. I think a lot of people talk about mental health and stress management. I think all of these things are going to be helpful, but here's the thing, we have to change habits, right? We can use all these fancy tools and devices, but there's still a responsibility for the individual to change behaviors and change habits and do the training.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, that's why I love, this, what we're doing together and what we're going to continue to do. Yeah. Our big thing too is on even on the brain side, on the tech side, there's so many things out there. There's so many things to measure. Whether it's reaction time or like, let's do this test or this test, and we could do this. So you can overload somebody and be like, okay, we're going to test you on all these different things. And did you know that your reaction time is 2 points high? And like, there's so many things to do. So our approach is to go, what matters? At the end of the day, like what is the thing that if we're going to test you on something, we're going to do a baseline just to kind of get a snapshot, golf swing, like go swing it a little bit. Okay. Now let's because of these things, let's improve it here because your ball flight is going to be better. Well, if we improve these things that are low, you're going to be able to process things faster. You're not going to be use as much energy now. Okay, if you train these things, and then also there's the thing of we call it there's another one, external forces. There's external trauma. There's concussions. There's all these different things that are on the outside that you didn't control, that your brain harbors inside of you. So those are the things that need to be worked through as well. I think of a golfer of just grinding it out. After a while, it's like, why do I keep putting myself through this? But there might be some tools out there that go, hey, let's reset the brain a little bit. Let's make it a little bit out of the, let's get in a more relaxed state a little bit more. And they go, man, I enjoy this. We had a guy, he said he wasn't competitive anymore. And he did the direct neurofeedback, the big machine that we did. And all of a sudden he started sweating and he goes, I could throw 95 miles an hour right now. Like something clicked in his brain, in his organ. Whoa, my gosh, I need to figure out how to turn this off. Clicked in his brain. I'm going to put my hands down. Clicked in his brain that said, you can go do this now. Like this is a state that you've been in before. Let's turn this back on. And that's what I get excited about is the actual, like, okay, there's external factors that happen that, why am I more stressed now? Well, you can think all the positive thoughts you want, but you're just in a stressful environment. Or you've had these past stresses that have happened. So let's kind of readjust this through some of these tools to make the organ heal a little bit more so that you're able to actually perform. And that's what 100%. I get excited about is being able to do those types of things. What if somebody is listening here today and go, hey, Rick, I want to work with you. I love what you're saying. I want to jump on board for this. What's the best way for someone to find you, to do this? And who are you looking for? Who are the people that you're like, hey, this is the best fit?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think I certainly want to help athletes and business people who are motivated. Honestly, I want people who want to make change, who are motivated to make change. Now, certainly, I work with competitive athletes. I work with juniors all the way from the age of 12 all the way up to PGA Tour players and other sports. I've worked with 12 different sports. So I love just applying these things in the sport environment and then in the business environment too. So it's people who want to do the work, who are motivated. I'm not a type of coach who you see me one time and say, oh, great, Rick, thank you. It's developing a relationship, it's developing a plan and such. So, on, the social channels, you can look under Rick Sessinghaus at Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. And we do a lot of videos. And then with Flow Code, we have our website, theflowcode.com. And that has a lot of our offerings. And then my own website, ricksessinghaus.com, we'll get a little more specific on that. But, like you, we want to make an impact on people's lives to where they are healthier, they're empowered, and they're enjoying life more. But yeah, a lot of people are coming for me on improved performance. Great. But I want to have it beyond just the golf course or the field of activity. And they go, wow, I'm using these tools and I'm a better person and I can deal with what life throws at me more. So that's where my my passion's at.
Amazing. I love it. This is great. Well, I'm gonna end it here. This has been fantastic. I love every time we get to talk together. I learn something new. I get excited about, all right, I'm gonna try to apply this, post round. I'm gonna try to do post meeting, post day, just kind of or recollect that, and then yeah, be more thankful. I mean, I think having gratitude, whether it's every day or on the golf course, I think that's just a fun way to kind of enhance the game. Whether you score a 85 or a 72 or a 65,
Right.
it's just a way to be able to do this. So thank you for your time.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. I know we'll have more of these conversations down the
Yes.
road. So I'm excited to just continue on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Dallas.
All right. Thank you.